Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint this foggy landscape. We're going to be showing you how to do reflections in water and all that kind of fun stuff. It's our beginner series that we're working on, and I'll show you step by step how to do it from start to finish. I've got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's managing chat for our live show today, so if you've got questions while I'm painting, you can ask them, and I'll try to answer them. Let's get started. Alrighty, so I'm going to be using a 9x12" mixed media canvas board today. This just mixed media just means it can accept all kinds of different types of paint and inks and things like that. So, but it's good for acrylics. It's already gessoed, so ready to go. I don't have to do anything to it. Fredrix is our canvas sponsor, so thank you to them for providing this. We're going to be needing some brushes. We're going to show you a couple of different techniques today. So we're going to show you how to do the fog, which is a scumbling technique. It's similar to glazing, where glazing is like laying down a very thin layer of paint. We did at the very end of the last beginner series on the flower, where we added kind of an orange color on to the pink to make it a little bit more yellowed, a little bit more like a peachy pink color. So that's a glaze. You lay on the glazes like very thin and even. With scumbling, it's going to be a little bit different, and I'll talk to you about that more when we get to it. But we'll be showing that to you today. We'll be showing you how to do very simple trees with some stippling. So that's another technique that we'll be talking about today. And we'll also be using a mop brush to do some reflections and kind of softening up some of the water. So we'll need some sort of a large soft brush. It doesn't have to be an actual mop brush, but something like this. This is a oval mop, 1/2 inch. In the Select. Princeton's our brush sponsor, so thank you to them. I've also got a number 4 Filbert, so that'll be for some of the water ripples. And then you're going to want something for your trees. So I've got several different brushes that we can use for our trees. I've got a fan brush. It's a number 10 aught fan brush. You can use that, or you can use the blenders. I've got a 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch blender brush. Those are just stiff bristled Filberts. And then I've got my Deerfoot stipplers, and I've got 2 of the same size, but this is 3/8 inch size. It's angled a little bit, and these are my preferred one for things like clouds and larger trees. For the smaller, like pine trees, you'll want something a little bit thinner, since of course these are round. You can get some smaller into some small areas with the very tip of some of the brushes, so I grabbed a 1/4 inch as well. So I'll show you kind of how to use all these brushes for different kinds of trees as we get going today. All right, and then I've got a number 3 round and 18-aught short liner if we need them for some lines. There's some tree trunks. I'm not going to get too fussy with the design today, but we'll probably put in a few little tree trunks. So you're going to want a small round brush of some sort to do that. All right, and then a large brush to just kind of base in some of our large areas in the background. All right. Let's go over our colors. I've got carbon black, burnt umber, cadmium yellow medium, phthalo green blue shade, ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, and quinacridone magenta. This is a large amount of titanium white. We'll be using a lot of white today. And then I've got a little bit of zinc white. This is a transparent white. If you don't have that, that's okay. You can use your titanium white, but you will have to dilute it quite a bit to do some of the fog techniques. And then this is gloss glazing liquid. You can satin glazing liquid's fine. Just any kind of liquid that'll thin out your paints just a little bit. It's got an extender in it, so it gives us a little bit extra time too. All right, so let's get going here. First thing I'm going to do is just kind of lay out some of the color in the background. How you doing, hon?
I'm doing good. Got a real question about our brush.
Okay.
They would like to know if a stippler is like a scruffy brush.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stippling, yeah. Stipplers will work, yeah. Some brushes are called stipplers, but yeah. It's just mainly it's going to be a brush that gives you some texture so that you can do foliage and that kind of thing. There's all kinds of different ways to do it, but yeah.
Well, good. You're 1 for 1. Good job.
All All right, so let's draw this out here. I'm gonna go down about 1/3 of the way. So we just kind of figure out where my third is. I can't see the whole screen. Can you show it?
Sorry.
Thanks. So it helps me to be able to see if I'm on camera or not.
Well, I just do that so I can see when the
No, I
intro goes
know.
off.
I'm telling the folks that
okay.
I have a little thing where I can see what you guys can see so that I know if I'm
preview
staying on
window.
camera. Right. You need to lift it up too. I can't. It's cutting off at the bottom. Thank you. All right. So I'm just going to use this. And if you just use your finger along the edge of your canvas here and kind of start, and then you can just use it to guide you across and keep about the same distance away. I kind of dropped off right there. But this actual image, it kind of curves a little bit. Like we're not seeing the far shore, so we don't have to worry about it being completely straight. So we can kind of come down a little bit like that. So that's basically all we're going to do. Now I want to make sure that I have enough room down here so that right about kind of just off center here, I can do these trees in here. So I'm just going to use my fingers and kind of mark out where that tree is going to be right there and right there going off. And then these are going to taper down to about right in here on either side, somewhere in there. And then it raises back up just a little bit. So it kind of dips down like this. And then it mimics it here in the water. Okay, something like that. I'm not drawing this very hard. I just mainly want to kind of get an idea of where to put some of my color change. So there's going to be a color change right in here and right in here in the water. And then right here, this tree comes down, and then there's a hillside right here that we can kind of put in that's a little bit darker right there. And then it is going to be mirrored in our water. However wide this is on here, we can go at least that far down here, maybe even farther. It just depends. Ripples in water do different things. It's not always exact, it's mirrored opposite, size, but it's a good rule of thumb. Just kind of make sure that you're getting it about the same. In this image, these look like they're coming down just a little bit lower maybe than the upper trees, just because they're kind of, the ripples are carrying that reflection down just a little bit. Okay. And then we've got a very large tree that's going to be right up here. But our dark area is going to start right here. All the rest of this, all up in here, is going to be our lighter sky behind our trees. So we want to be sure we get that in. Look at your image, see where you're seeing light, and wherever that light, those little light parts that are peeking through the trees stop, that's where your hillside's going to be. Okay, makes sense? All right, let's get going here. I'm going to spray this down with a little bit of water to start with. I'm going to grab a pretty good amount of white here. Thank you, hon. I'm glad it makes sense.
I mean, nobody else answered, so
Right, nobody else answered, so yeah,
I'd speak
appreciate
up.
it.
You're welcome. Ooh, what are you putting out there?
I'm putting out more white because I'm going to need it for later, and I want to be sure I don't have to stop what I'm doing. I want to mix up these colors that I'm going to be using in the sky because I want to be able to work quickly. So mix them up and don't spend a ton of time mixing, because the more you mix and mix and mix and mix a color, the more air you're introducing to it, and the more it's going to start to dry out. So just kind of mix fairly quickly. I've got like maybe 1 part yellow to like 50 parts white. I don't know. It's a lot more white than yellow here. I want it very, very, very pale yellow, barely distinguishable as yellow. So, but I'm going to keep that color pretty bright because that's our sunlight peeking through my trees here. And I might even come with just a little bit more yellow later, but I think that that's going to work for me for now. So I'm going to scrape that up and then just spread it out there so that I've got it all in kind of in a small area. I'm going to grab some more of my white, another good amount. This one I'm not going to have to mix as much, but I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of the Quinacridone Magenta. And you see how little I've got here. Just a tiny bit of that Quinacridone Magenta. And I'm going to go ahead and just scoop up what I've got of this extra yellow here. Just a little bit of it. And I'm not going to need that much, but I'll go ahead and mix it. And this is going to make a pale pinky peach color. I want a little bit more yellow. So it just barely reads as pink. There we go. Looks good. Again, let's go ahead and scrape it up. Load it. Scrape it up into as small of an area as you can get. Okay. And then I'm going to wipe this off because I've got a lot of this color on here. Just try to get as much off it on my palette. The reason I'm scooping it up into a small area though, because this is going to dry really fast. Anytime you're spreading that paint out thin on your palette, it's going to dry quicker. So if I can keep some in a little smaller area here, it's going to give me much more time to dry. So won't have to worry about it drying on me. All right, I'm going to get maybe a little bit too much. Maybe 1 part burnt umber here. Go down here. And like 2 parts blue. And like 1 part purple. And okay, 1/2 part magenta. So we're wanting to make a purple. The brown is just going to kind of neutralize our colors so that it's not a super saturated purple. I want it to be kind of toned down because this is very like foggy, misty morning scene. But I want a lot of blue undertones, so that's why I added quite a bit of that ultramarine blue too. I thought about leaving the purple out, but I think we're going to want to use it later in our dark areas of our trees. So I went ahead and used it. But if you don't have the Dioxazine Purple, you could just mix up your own purple with Quinacridone Magenta and Ultramarine Blue. It'll make a nice purple for you. So, all right, I think that's going to be the color that I want for our mist here. So I'm going to kind of leave it dark here. I'm going to put out some more white. Like I said, we're going to be using a lot of white today. And I'm mixing up just a little bit more than I think I'm going to need because this is going to dry really fast. And if I want to use it later, I want to be sure that I have enough mixed so that I don't have to remix a color and try to match something up. Okay, so there's a really pretty like bluish purple there that we've got. I just used what was left on my knife here and just added it to that white. I didn't, pick up any new color there. All right, so these will be our 3 kind of main background sky colors. And we'll also use these in the water some. And then we'll have this color to mix into later if we need it. I'll probably add a little bit more yellow. Probably going to need a little bit more of the yellow white than this for the sky, but we'll see. Okay, I'm definitely going to need more white. So I'm going to, put out more white yet again. Oops, come on. Get down to the end here. Whoa, there we go. Okay, well, hopefully that'll be about right. We'll see. All right, I'm going to get my large brush and get a little water, and then while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and spray my canvas as well. Just once, just a little bit. I don't want to oversaturate it, but I just want a little bit of water here. If you're using a regular canvas, you can spray the backside of it as well. Just helps activate those fibers of the canvas and gives us a head start on it. Okay, so I'm going to grab this brush. I'm I'm just going to pull off that color from my palette knife. So I'm using up all that good color. And I'm just going to use what's on here and pick up a good amount of white. And I'm going to go straight up here and do my sky. And this is that purpley blue color. It's got a tiny bit of magenta in it, but mostly just blue, ultramarine blue, mostly white. A little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of purple, a little bit of Quinacridone Magenta, and a little bit of burnt umber. But you can see how very like neutral and soft this color is. Very light blue-gray. And I'm just going to paint this on quickly. Smooth it out here. As I get down to this area where I kind of showed my little dip, I'm going to grab my yellow. I want this smoothed out. I got a lot of paint on my brush here. I probably picked up a little too much white. Okay, now I'm going to pick up that yellow and go right up along that line there, right behind my trees. I'm going to go ahead and wipe my brush out because I do have like a little too much paint on there. Grab that yellow and go right up to that hillside that we drew, right? And really get that yellow down in there. Okay, so it's got a nice little light glow. And I'm going to use this yellow down here in the water. Okay, I'm going to grab that pink color. I'm going to use the pink. And I'm doing all of this fairly quickly because I don't want this to dry out. And I'm not going to worry too much about the hillside because that's going to be dark. I mainly want to keep my light yellow kind of right up against this side and only do the pink kind of right from here to here, right? That makes sense. Okay, and I'm going to use a little bit of the pink down here. And I'm just going to fill in this whole bottom area, just mixing these two colors together. If it feels like they're too dry and they're not mixing, you can grab a little bit of water to pick up some more of that, and that'll help that paint go on a little smoother. But there we go. So going all the way up there. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give this whole thing a coat of paint and just use what's left on my brush to kind of fill it all in here. With that yellow. Okay, so I can feel that the paint's kind of dragging here. It's not wanting to blend for me, so I'm just going to let Mark take it. And he's going to dry this for us, and then we'll have a nice dry surface to work on when we do our next steps. I'm going to go ahead and mix up some more of this yellow, though, because we need it. We're going to need more of it. I kind of knew that I didn't have enough of it. A little bit of yellow. I'm going to go ahead and mix it just slightly more saturated this time. Just a tiny bit more yellow. There we go. Okay, so when you're blow drying it, make sure, I know we talked about this the very first week, I think, but make sure when you're blow drying it that you're not holding the blow dryer straight down onto your surface in one spot, that you're kind of moving it side to side and staying about 12 inches away or so from the actual surface of the paint. That way you'll have, it won't kind of melt the paint. Acrylics are kind of a plastic, right? So they don't do well with when you heat them up. They'll actually kind of bubble and do weird things. So just make sure that you're doing it on a low heat and staying fairly, mainly you just want to add air to it. You're just kind of trying to blow some air on it. Okay. Doing that, got these colors ready to go. So I'll talk a little bit about the difference with scumbling. Scumbling is kind of a glazing, what we talked about last week. Glazing is a very thin, transparent layer that's evenly coated, right? Not showing any blotches or unevenness. Scumbling is basically almost the opposite of that. It's kind of similar. You're putting down color, but it's going to be, instead of transparent color with glazing, you're putting down an opaque or semi-opaque color, like a white or a lighter color over the top of a darker one maybe. And you're putting it on in kind of an irregular manner so that it looks a little bit rough and textured. So we did a little bit kind of similar thing last week when we did the dry brushing, but that was like technically just dry brushing. This one with scumbling, we're putting on a very, very thin layer. So instead of like, both of them are going to be using a dry brush, but with scumbling, we're going to put on a very, very thin layer. So that's how it's close to glazing, because it is sort of like a glaze when you can see through it. Okay, thank you, honey. With glazing, you're putting on color so that you can see through, and you're changing the color of your painting. Scumbling is basically achieving the same thing. You're changing the colors, but you're introducing just a little bit of texture, and but you're still wanting to be able to see through it to your original color underneath just a little bit. So it's a very, very thin layer of paint. I'll show you as we go, but basically fog. Think fog, think, you can see things still through, but it's obstructed. That's scumbling. All right, I'm just getting all that paint off there because I don't want to touch my painting like I did last week. What was I doing last week? Was it the flower? I can't remember. I did something and I got it on an area where I didn't want it. Okay.
It was a pink flower.
A pink flower, yeah. And that one, I'm just gonna say that one probably should have come later in our beginner series. It was a tough one for beginners. I'm sorry. I apologize. It was harder than I thought it was going to be, so that was my bad. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and start adding some of our color on here. This is, I don't know what you call this technique. This is just going to be basically, it's kind of like scumbling. I don't know. We're just basically going to be adding just a little bit of color on here. Let me see if this is dark. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. So I've got my pink and my yellow from the sky, and so I'm just going to be adding my my dark areas of very, very far trees or whatever this is in the background. We can't really tell. It's not in any particular shape. So I'm just going to be laying this color down kind of thinly, and I'm going to go on both sides here of my line. And try to kind of match up what I'm doing on both sides, okay? Now, the thing with this is you do not want to put down too much paint at one time, because if you put down too much paint, it will start to get, I'm going to pick up some of my next color. So I'm trying to blend this into my pink. So I'm going to pick up my pink and mix that with this and just kind of wipe some of that off. So I have very little paint here on my brush. And I'm just going to work it into that edge and start to soften that up. Going right over the top. Now, if this paint starts to get kind of thick or kind of acting like it doesn't want to go on, let's let it dry, and we can come back to it and add more paint later over the top. But I'm working in small areas, so just a small little area here. I'm going to try to get this color on And I'm going to go ahead and even add a little bit of glaze. The glaze will just kind of help thin out this paint just a little bit. Make it a little bit softer. But I don't want to go back over this area while it's drying. I can go back over it later once it's dry, but right now it's too fresh. And if I was to go back over that fresh paint with this brush, what it would just do is like pull it off the canvas. I would be basically like washing off what we've just done off the canvas, and we don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit more of this purple that we mixed. This is that light purple. And if you get it on here and you're like, that's way too dark, then you can always add more white to it. You know, it just depends on how much white you added. Yours might be a little bit darker than mine, but it's okay because we're going to be adding more white on top of this later. So even if it looks a little bit dark right now, don't worry about it because we can tone it down later when we do our fog on top of this. So this is not going to be the fog layer. This is just kind of the initial layer of our trees in this background. I'm just going to pull it side to side on this water, because our water is going to have these ripples. So if I kind of just pull this down side to side, I have like zero paint in my brush right now. So I'm really using the canvas texture to pull that paint off my brush. So I laid down kind of the thicker paint where I wanted it to be noticeable, and then right down here where I wanted to be a little bit more subtle, I just kind of ran what was left off my brush onto that area. All right, so I'm going to mix these two together just a little bit and get a little bit more of both the pink and that purple. And just going to bring that whole line of color up. If we do this right, we should still be able to see a little bit of that pink through that purple. So even though I'm going over the top of it a little bit, I'm still able to kind of see that pink through it. And I can add more pink if I can't see it. You know, I can just go back over this with pink here. This is one of those techniques that I guess this really is kind of scumbling. Oh, I don't know what to call it. It's not really stippling. Stippling is when you're tapping. So, and this is opaque, so I guess this is scumbling too. I don't really think about it being scumbling when I'm doing it.
Well, we'll come up with our own term.
Yeah, that's fine. I know that
it's angeling.
Okay.
Also known as awesoming. They're synonymous.
Thanks, honey.
Or could we say hotting?
No.
Oh. But it's true.
All right, so I'm mixing up. I'm just going to move on here. I'm mixing up some lighter pink, a little bit more white with this pink. So as we go down here, I'm going to just fade this color out in my water. I'm just going to pull it side to side here. If you're seeing an obvious line here, then you need to do two things probably. You need to lighten up your color so that it's closer to this color so that they match a little bit better in value. And that's a light and dark of the color so that they're closer together in color and value, not color, value. Values the light and darkness of the paint of the color. So this painting goes from your darkest dark to your lightest lights. It's got the full range of values, and that's what we're kind of working on here. So right in here, these two colors end up in here. These are all in the same value range. They're one or two values away from each other. If you look at a value scale, maybe our dark area here is somewhere in this range, and then it's going to go all the way to the light colors, all in this very small area right here. It's kind of like if you took these and just kind of smushed them down. So if you're seeing a really obvious line here between your two colors, it's because you're probably going from maybe this value to this value instead of doing these two values in between to soften that transition, okay? So make sure that if you're seeing that you just grab a little bit of white or a little bit of your color that's down here, your lighter color, which is this kind of yellow, and using that to mix up into that to kind of soften that transition between the little bit darker area and our lighter area, okay? Same thing right here in the upper triangle. So we're trying to kind of do just a very soft transition between our trees back here and our sky. And this is very light. I do like the colors. I think we're going a little bit, maybe a little bit more purpley than is in our reference photo, but we're close. So yeah, I think that'll work. All right, so back here where our hillside is, we're still going to see some of this color. So I'm just going to go ahead and use some of this purple back here, and I'm just going to do some small low trees that are kind of back in behind our sky. And then I'm going to grab that yellow, that's our sky color, and I'm going to go over the top of this and soften this all up. So I can see that it's there, but that sky color is going to help kind of just blur all those edges and just make a nice soft area of trees. And I'm just doing like little circles. I'm setting my brush down and just letting it kind of go in circles. I've got the tip down so that if I lift it and kind of angle it so just the tip is touching the canvas, I can do smaller areas. Let me show you with this. I can do smaller areas just by touching the very tip down, right? Or if I want bigger areas to cover, I can set the whole brush down and go in circles and fill in a very large area pretty quickly, okay?
Just so I can sit on the side.
Right here. Okay. I'm just doing it over here because I know this is going to be covered.
Good job.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab my little bit of this darker purple color here. I'm going to add just a little bit of brown because I feel like it's a little bit too saturated still. I feel like it's just slightly too bright. And one thing that you can do when you're doing distance, things, you know, trying to push things to the distance. So first thing is to make things lighter back here. Second thing is to make things less saturated with color. So, and less saturated or less intense of a color. Your colors coming straight out of the tube are going to be super intense. So this is all these colors right now as they are. If we went straight to the canvas or added white to them straight from here, they're going to be really intense, bright colors. Right here, we've toned it down a little bit. The white kind of dulls it just slightly, but it's still fairly intense. But when we add a neutral color like brown or black or gray, it will tone it down, and the color becomes a tone, and it is a little bit less saturated. And so the less saturated colors push that color farther away, and also the colors being very close together in value also create that distance for us. So these far areas here, very close in value and very desaturated, very light in value. Those all three of those things are going to push this color farther in the back. And then as we get closer, now these trees here are in silhouette because the light's behind them, so they're really dark. They're almost going to be just plain old black, like those birds that we did the second week of our series. But if we were doing this in like say daylight, right? If we were doing this in a bright sunny day where the sky's blue, We would still do our background colors less saturated. These colors in the trees that are closer to us would be brighter greens. The colors back here would be more muted and more blue because of the sky color would be affecting them. So I hope that made sense. I don't know, but all right, let's get going here. Okay, very good. So that's what's going on with this picture. That's why it makes it look like it's farther away. We're kind of reducing the size, right? So we've got these huge trees going down to the small trees, and then we're using these lighter, more less saturated colors for this background area. Okay, so getting some of that purple, adding just a little bit of white, and adding just a little bit of brown to make the color less saturated. And so I'm going to start to introduce a little bit darker color right here. And that's sort of right in the middle area here. And I'm going to wipe most of that out of my brush. And I'm going to start back here where I don't want to start right on the area where I want it blended. I want to start back here to see how dark this is going to be. So that's pretty good. It's pretty good. I lost a brush here. That's okay. That happens. I'm going to get it out of there now before I get going. Okay, so I'm going to spray all my paints down. That's going to help moisten my palette up. And my brush is still dry though. But now my paint's got a little bit of moisture in it. And I'm going to grab this color, which was our next color over, right? That's purple. And I'm just going to blend these two together. So I'm going to grab that. And I've got a little bit too much paint on here. You can see how much paint kind of started sticking to my getting some of that purple. Let's go ahead and get some of the pink. Use that too. Okay. So that color went down a little too intense and it was a little bit too thick. So I just cleaned out my brush, wiped it down really good. I want to keep the brush as dry as I can, because the brush can get kind of floppy if you add too much water to it. These more natural fiber brushes especially. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this color with a little bit of this purple, a little bit of the white, just to tone it down just a little bit, because it's a little bit too intense, I think, still. Okay, so there we go. And just bring that out just a little bit right here. We're going to go a lot darker with this still, but I just want to kind of start to add a little bit more of the darker color right in here. And let's go ahead and bring it down in our water too. In my water, I am just going to use what's left in my brush and just kind of run it side to side here. And try to keep the same size, just about. See, right here, here, same shapes as much as I can. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and grab some of the yellow, and I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to add just that little bright area of yellow right there. Got an area of the yellow that's peeking through my trees. I want to make sure that it's pretty bright yellow right there. So I'm just going to tap that back in right there.
So I'm glad that you're painting Oak Island tonight. That's really cool of you.
I know, it's a Oak Island tribute night, right?
So are you going to do any Bobby Dazzlers?
I don't know. You never know. Stay tuned.
Okay.
We'll have to do the teasers. A
Bobby
tree?
Dazzler?
A tree in the middle of a forest? What?
Possibly from the 1800s?
I think they buried treasure there. They like do this jump between like something very normal to like a ridge of rocks on the hillside. They must have buried something under there.
Get the dynamite.
Exactly. You know that sorry, we're talking about one of our favorite shows, Oak Island. We always crack up because those poor archaeologists that try to work with them, and they're just like dying, cringing every time they pull out the bulldozer and stuff. And like, they're finding these like book binding and stuff, and I was like, well, that was a book until they drilled right through the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's a priceless, one of a kind, first edition. And now it's, yeah. Okay, sorry. All right, I made a blue. I think I'm actually going to, I don't know if I'm going to use that. I see a little bit of blue back here, but I don't know that I'm going to use that. I kind of think I might. I added blue, the ultramarine blue, and a little bit of brown there, and then some of this purple here to it, but I might have even just used white. I'm not sure. I was talking. Sorry, not paying attention. I might use a little bit of this, though, on the hill, because there's just a little bit of a blue that I'm seeing on this hill. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just do that right here. Wipe that out. And then again, go back to this kind of purple, maybe a little bit of this pink, and go right along the top of that. And so blend it so that it's soft. And this is just that sunlight pouring through those trees. It bleeds around the edges of it, so it makes everything kind of soft and fuzzy. Okay. And you notice I'm really trying to kind of very slowly introduce the darker colors because I don't want to overdo it too quickly. If I like just go run in there and put in my darker colors, I'm going to lose all of this softness that I have in my sky and things. So I'm going to go ahead and get a fresh brush. And this is just a clean, same brush that I was using, but it's clean. And I'm going to use it up in here, adding my, maybe get a little bit of white. Oh, darn it. I had blue in there. So that's wet. So I'm just going to wipe it off. Okay. Get my color from the clean side there. So I'm just toning down that yellow just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And just bringing it up into my sky here. And most of this is going to be covered up by other trees, but I do want to make sure that I've got fairly good amount of yellow glow in here. So now that I've got my, sort of hillside area marked out, then I can kind of go back in here with this yellow and just make sure that I've got it sort of looking the way I want it to right there. And again, I don't want to see a transition here. So if I can see a really obvious transition, then I need to grab this color, which was that light blue, and put some of that light blue and white. Put some of that on and pull it down into, but I think this is fine. Or you could even just go straight white because it's light enough that we could use some white up in here. Just really brighten up that sky right in there behind these trees. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm trying to think of what I want to do next. Let's go ahead and start on our little trees here. So I'm going to go ahead and clean these brushes out, set them aside. I might use them later, but I want them clean, and that will let them dry out completely so that if I have to use them later, they'll be dry. I'm just running them on a clean paper towel to try to soak up any moisture that's in them and just set them aside. These brushes you can really abuse, and I do. If you got a new one, I would recommend kind of abusing it, pushing it around, like really like manipulating the brushes, because they'll kind of stick together at first. They don't want to spread out, and they're better as they spread. As the bristles get a little bit more kind of bent out of shape, they they do better job.
Okay, we're talking about brushes. Good.
Right.
Don't tell like boyfriends.
Don't abuse. No.
Abuse them.
I don't
They
normally
get
tell you
better
to
when
abuse
just
brushes.
spread them
but
out.
You're exactly.
When they hang together, they're not as good. Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry we missed Saturday. We were at a funeral for a good friend of ours that passed from cancer, so we had to travel for that. So appreciate you guys giving us the day off. That's a nice thing about setting your own schedule. We try to stay on schedule as much as we can, but sometimes life happens, so I'll be there. Be there for your friends. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab, let's go ahead, let me see. Okay, I think I'm going to use this brush. If this one's too big, I'll go ahead and switch to a 1/4 inch, but I'm going to grab the 3/8 inch blender, and I'm just going to decide where I want these trees to be now. So I think we did a good job of like kind of starting where they're going to be right here. So we're going to go a little bit darker with these and just kind of work our way up until we've got these really tall trees that are going to be all the way up here. So it's going to be a really quick transition. If you want to, you can use some chalk or draw in. This is still kind of wet, so I don't want to draw on anything right now. But if you want to, or this is where you could like transfer on your design if you are not wanting to draw these. But I would say that these are one of the easiest things to draw. I don't think that this is something that's going to be too challenging, hopefully. So, famous last words, right? I don't know why I do that to myself. Like, this is super easy, like last week's. And then it's like, oh no, maybe not. Maybe not as easy as I thought. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this purple, this dark purple here. I'm adding a little bit of the burnt umber again to it. I'm going to add a little bit more of the blue to it as well. And then grab this, that is this color plus white, right? And I'm just going to have it over here. And we're going to start with kind of a color that is a couple shades darker than this. Okay, a couple shades darker. And then I've got the very dark over here. And again, I'm going to kind of wipe a lot of that off. And I'm going to pick where I want my tree to be. And our tree technique is going to be just tapping upright. And then kind of turning it and doing some side bristles. So kind of creating the tall tree structure there, and then we're going to kind of turning our brush to the side so that we're getting some smaller branches out. That looks a little bit dark, but we are going to go back over this with our fog. So I want to go just slightly darker than it's going to end up. So I think we're close here. This may be a little bit too dark, so I'm going to go ahead and get some of that lighter purple and just tap back over some of this and kind of blend it out just slightly. Kind of blend a little bit together. Okay, there we go. So that's good. So let's go ahead and just keep on going here. I'm just going to quickly create some little tree shapes, and some of them are just going to kind of go straight up here. But I do want to leave a little bit of the sky showing around them, so don't fill them in completely. So just tapping. And then we can always grab a little bit of our sky color, or tap around and mush in the edges a little bit. Okay. Now, I'm going to go go a little bit darker down at the base where it meets the water. So down here, I'm going to start to introduce some of this color that is almost black. And like right in here is where it's going to turn to black, just about. So I don't have my black mixed. Let's go ahead and do that really quick. I'm going to grab my green. I'm just going to make a spot over here. Green and magenta. And some purple. And some blue. I'm just going to add all 4 of these colors together. But I want my green to be kind of dominant, so I want to be able to see it. If you don't have this green, you could just use like a phthalo blue with a little bit of yellow, and then add the rest of these colors. So if I scrape it through, I can kind of see the undertones of it. I want it a little bit more dark, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of burnt umber. That's going to darken it up and neutralize it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to use that color and this color together. That dark purple that we mixed with these 3 colors and burnt umber. And then this color is just the same, but adding the green to it. So it's a little bit more green. This one had a little bit more blue in it. All right, so, oh, look at how pretty that is. Okay, very nice. So I'm just gonna start along my water line here and start tapping in my darkest dark area. And this is both colors kind of together. Now, if you want to, you could add black. I put the black in there just because I wasn't sure if this would be dark enough, and I still might add black when we do our sky or our biggest trees in this area. But for now, I'm going to start with this color, and then we'll add more as we go if we need it. Okay, so I'm going to go up. Remember we did that little bit of blue, so I want to go right up to that, but not quite over it. And just going to create kind of a soft, fluffy foliage area. So I'm going to just tap. This is stippling, tapping to create texture right here. So stippling. Okay. And then down in the water, I'm going to use the same colors. I'm just going to fill in this whole area here. This is all dark down here. We're going to do the tall, dark trees here in a minute, but for now, this whole bottom corner is dark. We're not seeing rifflables, we're not seeing anything until about right in here somewhere. So we're just going to go ahead and fill that whole area in with the dark all the way up into here. Don't worry about your fog. We'll put the fog on top. Got to have the dark underneath for the fog to work. I can lighten it up just slightly, like right in here, so that I don't have as much work to do with my fog, but I still need it to be kind of dark right in there. Okay. Okay, so in here, this is where I need to start to kind of slow down and think about where my trees are going to be. I'm going to go ahead and create kind of a zigzag area and leave a little bit of my yellow showing through. Not going to look great yet, but that's okay. We'll get it there later. Okay, then I'm going to grab some of my pink, so maybe this little purple that's in my water right here. I'm just going to mix it in just a little bit. The thing about water reflections is that it's going to be most times the same colors as in your sky. So if your sky is this color, your water is going to be this color. So you're not going to have like a pink, purple, yellow, whatever sky and then have blue water. It's going to be water is reflective. It may have, you know, a little bit of blueness depending on what, you know, how it's reflecting, but it's not going to be. I see a lot of people doing that, you know, making their water more blue than it needs to be. It needs to match your sky most of the time. It's a general rule of thumb. Okay, so I'm using the lighter blue here. I'm just going to go over, scrub through. And I'm just blending these two colors together just a little bit. So kind of creating a transition between that really dark area and my lighter color. Dark purple. Okay, so I'm going to do this on purpose. So over here, this color is starting to dry and it's starting to get kind of sticky. So if I was to go back over this with my brush that doesn't have a lot of paint in it right now, I'm just going to scrape that paint right off. If I was to go in and say, you know, I think I want to blend this, so I'm going to add water to it. I hate doing this. Okay. I'm going to show you. We'll do it over here. So we'll pull this color off. So I'm going to add really soupy wet water right here to that. I'm going to wipe my brush off because I can't do it. But it's going to basically wipe that paint off. See how it's wiping it off? Which is fine, you know, if you want to do that. But if you are, you know, if you're trying to blend an area and you decide I need to add water to it, usually that's not going to be the right choice. A lot of times, especially if your paint's drying like over here, you just really need to leave it and come back and do another layer over it later. So we'll just let that set. Plus, this area here, sorry, where the cough came from. I'm just going to go wipe that down because this area here is not going to really adhere very well. You can see how it wiped off super easily because I had so much water in that paint. It didn't have anything to make it stick to the canvas in there. So, get some of that purple. Okay, we'll just let this set. This is not looking great right now, but I know that, and that's okay, and that's part of the process. So if I know going in, I'm not going to panic. I think a lot of times when we see things like this and we're like, you know, your brain starts going, oh, you're doing it wrong. You know, like that's not right. This can't be right. Fix it. And then you end up like doing something that is going to not be, you know, right. I'm just going to go back in here with some thicker paint, add that on top of that area that I took off. Okay, so let me go back in here and really darken up this area here. This is black, 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 very dark. Okay, we'll let that set. Let's keep on going, moving up here. So I'm going to make a purple for up in here that's got a little bit more of our magenta in it. Just for this area that's right next to our sunlight, you might be picking up a little bit more of an orange cast. So I might pick up a little bit of my yellow and a little bit of my magenta. Now, yellow and purple are opposite on the color wheel, so when you mix them together, it's going to make a brown. But if we use enough of the magenta, it's going to be kind of a pinkish brown. That's what I want. Yeah, so see how pretty that is? It's still kind of a neutral dark color, but it's going to be kind of pretty for our sunlight area. So let's go ahead and grab some of this, which was our background color for this, right? I'm just going to mix it with this because I want to blend these two together right in here. So I'm just going to kind of tap them together. Okay, and then down in the water, I don't want to get too far gone before I start doing the trees in the water. So the water area is going to be a little bit lighter, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit of my white and go about the same height with my trees. Again, these are going to be, we're going to add our fog on top of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and go just slightly darker, but it's going to be about the same, close to the same value as the trees above. Okay. And I'm just going to tap and just try to kind of see how far down I want to go with this. And in the water, we've got some ripples, so I can kind of go a little bit more side to side with it when I'm putting these in. Kind of setting it down and kind of pulling it a little bit so that it's just a little bit wavy. And get a little bit more of that purple. Right, and then I've got that darker color. So I'm going to put that darker color just like back in here. Put it in my water too. So get that purple, add it to this color here that we mixed. I'm just going to transition. Whatever I do up here, I want to do down here too. What are you laughing at?
Somebody wants to know, how do you get your husband to be so involved in your art?
I don't know. I really, honestly, when I very first started doing this, I did not ask him at all because I didn't think he'd want to. But I think when he saw that it was being successful, that was partly. Not gonna lie. I think if there were two people watching, I don't know that Mark would be sitting in here with me. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. But
wow.
I'm just saying. Being truthful. Mark's always supported me pretty well, though. I mean, you've always gone to my shows and stuff. You just never, really sat and watched me paint. Until now, I never really did that, ever. So, yeah, but he would always see what I was, painting and want to see it and stuff, so, Okay, so just kind of putting in some lines of ripples in here. I'm going to go back in and add some of my light color through, but I'm still trying to kind of keep the, you know, the spacing correct for these trees here. And I'm going to pull that dark up into my bottom of my trees here. I don't think I'm going to worry about the tree trunks. I just don't feel like we need them. So I'm not going to do, I was going to do tree trunks, but I don't think I'm going to this time. I want to make sure I've got some of that light through there. And then use some of that down here. This is the yellow that's in my water, my sky color, right? I'm going to use it in there. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the ripples that are through this water while I've got this brush out and we're thinking about it. So there's these ripples that come through. They're at an angle. They're going to get smaller as they go farther away. I'm going to go ahead and use the yellow. I'm going to press my brush really flat. You can use another brush if you wanted to, but I think this one will work. I was going to use my Filbert, but I think this one will be fine. So I'm just going to stick with it since I've already got it dirty, and that'll just give me one less brush to have to wash later. All right, so kind of at a diagonal here. I'm going to stack these so that they're going just slightly at an angle. So I'm holding this at an angle. So like this. They're going to go kind of like this. They're pointing out this way and just light ripples going across this way, just a slight angle. And they're stacked, right? But as they get farther away, they're getting closer and closer and closer and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then they kind of trail off right in here. So I'm going to start right about maybe halfway from the top, my line here down. So about halfway down here, I'm going to start and just go through these. I've got the purple there, right? So I'm going to just use this light yellow. This is started at a direction and stick with it all the way down. It's going to be very subtle, so at first I might not be able to see it because I'm probably going to have to go through with my dark color and add the dark color to these. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get some of the purple and pink here. That is this color, right? And I'm going to go in between my light yellow and add, I think I do need this brush. I do need my thinner brush here.
Which one is it?
This is the 4 Filbert. It's just going to give me a flatter line. I just need it to be a little bit more controlled. So, okay. So we're going to start in like this. Whatever direction that we decide to go. Right? Whatever angle, they're just going to follow that same angle all the way down. This shouldn't be super obvious because this is that soft color that we've got going on back here. So it should pretty much blend out right about here. Should be about the same color as we got there. The only reason we're seeing it here is because it's going up against this light yellow that we have down below here. So if you're not seeing it, then you may have to bring your yellow back up a little bit before you do this color. So just kind of figure out where you're at with your colors as far as the value changes go. I'm going to go ahead and bring some of that up there even. This is why we mixed up enough of this color, because we needed to go ahead and you know, grab some of it now. We're using it. So I'm going to go right into my colors here. Go right on top of what we've got going on. And I'm kind of going just slightly arcing, just slightly, because these waves are not like a perfect straight line. They've got a little bit of a soft motion to them, right? So we want to kind of mimic that. All right, so that's about it. Not going to overdo it. I might do a little bit more down here, but I'm not going to, oh, I don't want to overpower it. So I'm going to get a little bit of the darker purple that's our color here. Maybe go in here with that. And okay. Then if I needed to, if I had, let's go ahead and grab some of the pink. I'm going to go ahead and use the pink over in this area. So it's a little bit more subtle. If I needed to, and I probably will go ahead and go back over this area with some of my yellow. That's this original color, right? So let's get in that yellow. And I'm going to get some glaze, because I don't want it to be too thick. I want to be able to see my color through it, so the glaze will help. And I'm just going to go over the top and find those ripples, the dark ripples, and going to go in between the dark ripples. So and these ones back in here are very thin. And again, we're going to be, most of this is going to be fogged up, so we don't have to, I'm going a little bit darker than, I'm going, getting a little bit of this darker purple here for my water down here. But most of this is going to have fog covering it, so I'm not too worried about how, getting a little bit of that more brownish purple that we had going on here too. Whoops. I just grabbed a little bit of the yellow there. That's okay. Dog wants in. Okay, so it's starting to get a little sticky because it's been setting out for a little while. So I'm gonna have to stop here in a minute, but I got the glaze because the glaze will give it a little bit more moisture without adding too much water. There we go. And I want a soft transition between these colors. Now this may seem a little bit too complicated. I hope it's not. I hope I'm going slow enough that you can follow along. I don't really feel like this is too complicated. I really don't. But I could be wrong. I don't know. All right, so, but I think you get the idea. Just so kind of that side-to-side motion there. It's the main thing. I'm getting a little fussy right now, so I need to probably quit and move on. I did want to show the mop brush, though. So this is where I was going to do the mop. So if I've got a little bit of wet purple down, and I put a little bit of wet yellow down, I can use a damp, just slightly damp brush that's soft, and just kind of brush over them, and it'll slightly blend them together. See how that's doing? Just kind of softens up the look. And it's nice for something like this. Now, I didn't really need it right here because when I was putting that on, I was kind of going softly, and it sort of worked just fine for me. I didn't feel like I needed to pull in the mop brush, but it does work pretty well for kind of softening things. If you've got an area that you feel like you got it a little bit too heavy, you can use your finger also, but all right. So let's go ahead and keep on going here. I'm going to get this pinkish brown color that we had for the trees over here, and let's go ahead and use that. Again, we're going all the way up to here, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of start putting in some trees a little bit taller. These ones are still kind of in the background-ish area, so I'm going to kind of put those in first, sort of. Waggy tails hitting everything. Bing, bang, 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 bang. Hi, puppy. Your waggy tail's cracking me up, puppy. How can that not make you happy? I ask you. Okay, so there we go. Soft, brownish trees. Let's go ahead and kind of do a little bit darker one right here. Different shaped trees, so kind of a oak type tree is going to have more of a pear shape, more of a rounded top. And then of course the pine trees are more spiky at the top. We've seen pine trees done a million times by Bob Ross, huh? Everybody knows that. All right. Getting a little bit of the darker. As I'm getting up here, I'm going to start to really lay on some really heavy, dark shadowy trees. And there's still going to be just a little bit of this light background showing until we get to about right here. And then it's just going to stop because this is all solid. So I'm going to get some of that green and bring it up. Let's go ahead and get my bristle fan. We'll go ahead and do the pine trees.
The bristle fan.
Bristle fan. I'm going to get my purple and a little bit of the green. And I'm going to go ahead and grab some black. Just because I want this really dark. And I'm going to load this up pretty heavy with paint. I'm going to thin down the paint just a little bit. It works a little bit better with the fan brush if you've got a little bit more fluid, kind of like when you do line work. So a little bit more water with it so it comes off the brush a little easier. I'm going to press that brush flat, but you can see how much paint is gobbed on there. It's pretty thick with paint. That'll just make it so that I don't have to press down very hard with this as I work. You know what? I want to do just a slightly lighter version though on these trees that are, well, yeah, because otherwise I'm going to have to cover them. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of that sky color, some of that yellow that's up here. And I'm just going to clear myself off a spot so that I can mix that together. Okay.
So while you're doing that, real quick, we've had some questions in chat regarding Patreon.
Okay.
So I just put up the patreon.com/AngelaFineArt. You can go over there and check out all the different levels and what's available on those.
Right.
And Patreon is a calendar month subscription.
Right.
So it's from the first of the month to the last day of the month.
Right.
So if you sign up on the 30th of the month, then you get a day or two, and then you you would get a charge again on the next day. So
Right.
just a heads
Yep.
up on that.
Yeah.
In the
It's not
bonus,
anniversary billing. It's you're
right,
signing up. Yeah.
right. In the
Get a
bonus,
little bit of burnt umber here, and I got a little bit of this purple. So this is gonna be. Go ahead. The bonus video.
the
What?
bonus video for this month, the $5 level has not happened yet. It will
Right.
be on a week from Sunday because of Valentine's Day, right?
Right. We pushed it back to the 21st.
Normally you try to do it earlier though.
Yeah. Usually I do it on the second Sunday of the month, but this month we did it later. Okay. I feel like I want it a little bit more purple still. All right. So just added a little bit of that lighter color. And so I'm going to start here. I'm going to go ahead and tap in my tall tree. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of pull down sort of where the tree trunk is. Let's do another one right in here. Okay. So it'll kind of give me an idea of where to put it. Let me go a little bit darker than that. So I'm going to tap up, tap to either side, and then just start tapping out branches. I want to make them about that wide. So sorry, my dog is in the background chewing on stuff and playing with toys now. So
Pickle needs to go.
making it. Are you showing it? You should show him what he's playing with.
I showed it earlier.
You showed it earlier. Okay.
Okay, you can have this, but this needs to go out.
I got a little too much paint on there at one time, so I'm just going to tap some of that off and try again there. There we go. Okay, much better. Go a little taller. So the pine tree shape, it kind of goes slightly up the top. Those first few branches kind of go upward, and then it very quickly kind of switches to middle, and then toward the bottom, sometimes it even angles down. So I'm just going to kind of tap across. Let's go ahead and do another tree in here. They go off the canvas on the side here. Okay, so just kind of tapping, and then I'm going to get this darker color here and use that toward the bottom. And kind of try to stick in the same area, but just going over this and darkening it up just a little bit, leaving the top sort of hazy. That makes sense? So kind of leaving that light color peeking through, so like that sunlight is kind of affecting the trees a little bit, making them lighter towards the top. Yeah, he was a bad dog yesterday. He chewed up my snake plant that I just transplanted. I was not a happy camper. So, bad dog yesterday. I was just starting to let him be alone, you know, for short periods of time, but that's back to 24/7 supervision. Because
Well, You had just transplanted it and put in some fresh dirt, so he
Right,
likes
he was
that.
like, he loves fresh dirt. Yeah, he does that with our patio plants too. So yeah, I should have known better. Okay, I'm gonna put a tree in right here that's kind of filling out between these. Just leaving a little bit of these taller trees in the background. I'm talking about you. Yeah, I'm talking about what we were doing yesterday. He knows when I'm telling on him too, because he'll come up and he'll like lick my face and stuff when I'm trying to tell Mark what he's done that day that was bad, you know. Just like, no, Mom, don't tell me, don't tell on me. He does, he knows. Okay, so there we go. I'm pretty happy with that, I think. I got a little bit of the lighter blue here. There, and then let's go ahead and use it in my water. Make sure my water is nice and dark. So I didn't want to do this in the water until I got the dark colors down, because I wanted to make sure that I got it kind of across from where I did these trees. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some dark. What's the matter? Oh.
We were just saying last week how
Quiet
and peaceful he is, and this week it's like a train.
Yep. Yep.
Do you have any tips to keep pine trees from looking like blobs?
Well, I think if you have your paint thin enough, and I've kind of filled this in more than it is in the reference photo, so that's just my own personal preference. But you know, you can leave it a little bit more open if you want to in here. But yeah, I mean, mainly just leave space between your branches, and you know, make sure that they don't get filled in solid. So leave space, find a shape that you like, and then just kind of leave those little areas in between. You can always go back in too, especially with this kind of painting where we've got, you know, it's so foggy and atmospheric. We can go back in here and add you know, space between our trees if we need to, you know, add some space back in. You know, maybe a little bit of my yellow in here, or just shape out some of the trees, but I don't think I'm gonna mess with it too much. I am gonna add just a little bit of the light color poking through in a couple places though. Okay, so let's go ahead, and this needs to be completely dry, so I may have to have you dry this for me, hun, before we can do the final fog.
Okay. The final fog. Sounds like
The final fog. I'll show you what we worked on in Patreon. We just finished the lamb in our $10 group. So this was a $10 level. So you can see we do like much more complicated, detailed paintings. This one took us, I think, 9 hours over 4 weeks to complete. And it was actually a really good lesson because we went over skin tone, you know, doing skin tones and fur and then textiles and things. So it had a lot of different things. The blanket kicked my butt. It took me 2 weeks to do the blanket. So lots of stripes on that one. But our bonus video for next month, or what we're going to be working on next month. Let me see. I don't think I have it up yet. Let me see if I do. I'll show you what we're going to do for our challenge image. If I can get it to show up on top. Yep, there we go. So that's what we're going to be working on in the $10 level, same level as this. So if you sign up for the $10 level on Patreon, you get access to all of the old lessons like this one, plus the new one. So we're going to start on that on Thursday, 2 days. And then Mark mentioned the bonus video. This is going to be the bonus video. So we'll be doing that. That's the $5 level. So we'll be working on that one in a couple of weeks on Sunday. So go ahead and put that back up there. But yeah, I would say we've got like over 400 and something videos on 450, maybe 480, I can't remember, on YouTube. So we've got a lot to choose from that's totally free, but we do 2 videos a month that are paid. So $10 and $5, and the $10 level's one that we work on all month long in a Thursday live stream, and then the $5 level is the one time, once a month bonus video that we do and sit down and finish it all in one setting. So, all right. So now we've got our scene here. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and use this brush here to do the fog. So we did stippling for our trees. We did our scumbling kind of for the background. We're going to go ahead and do some more here for the fog. So I'm going to use the Zinc White. Zinc White is just a little bit of transparent. You can use the regular white though if you don't have Zinc White, so don't worry about that. You just add a little bit extra water to it to make it more transparent. And I'm going to add some glaze. That will also help. And I'm going to use a little bit of, let's go ahead and use a little bit of this purpley color here. I used a little bit of Ultramarine Blue too. So this purple had white in it. So it's going to make it a little bit more opaque, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and mix up a good amount of the color that we want to use so I can work quickly. I'm going to wipe my brush clean and get just a little tiny bit of paint on here. So don't want very much. I want my brush to be dry. I want very little paint on here. And I'm going to start to very lightly scumble in. And I'm going to create my water line with this. But it's going to go over both sides. So I'm just going to keep on adding more paint. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit more of the kind of opaque color because it's not covering very well. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can see through it, right? A little bit. We're seeing a little bit of that color through it. I want to go right on the water line and just slightly above it.
I can't believe you showed the painting of Tom Brady you did while I was away.
Of Tom Brady?
Yeah, when he was a kid being raised by Tibetan monks.
God. That's a bad joke. That's a really bad joke.
Everybody says he's the GOAT, so I figure.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I've never heard that.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that.
Tibet is not in Peru, and so just saying.
Well, I thought
opposite parts of the world.
He was raised by Tibetan monks there, so that's how he became so good.
The Tibetans went to Peru.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it happened.
Okay. Just wondering. Okay. All right. So this color right here is starting to dry, so I don't want to go over it. I'm going to have to, I want to do a second coat, but I'm not going to be able to do it right away. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep adding this color here and just scrubbing it on, and you can see it doesn't have to go on really smoothly. It's not going to. It's going to be kind of, messy, but I'm just kind of doing this swirling motion. If it goes on really thick and you just can see like this huge like difference, and you're not seeing any of the background color through, then just add some water. You need to tone it down, bring it down a notch so that it is thinned out a little bit more. Probably brought it over a little too far right there. I'm going to use a damp cloth and just kind of wipe it in the opposite direction. Just kind of pull off a little bit of that color where I didn't want it to go. And that can help you kind of control too how thick it's going on if you have a little wet towel. But like right in here, when it starts to dry, you really can't scrub over it anymore. If you do that, what it'll do is lift off the color that's already there. So just kind of know that. I'm going to go ahead and go along that line there. Try to make sure that this is going to be just slightly lighter, so I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of white here. See how you can see just a little bit of a lighter color just right below here. And this, we've already kind of put that, soft color down here, so we don't have to do much on this side. This is already kind of blended out somewhat. I think I will add a little bit more of the purple down in here though. Go a little bit darker with this. Right in there. And then there is an area right in here that's kind of not really sure what it is, but it's something floating on the water. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Zinc White, fairly thick on my brush. So pretty decent amount of it, but I want to keep my brush flat. So, make sure it goes in flat. And I'm going to flip it so that the heavy paint is on the top, so I don't want too much of it to go down. And I'm just going to skim across here. Create some little highlights in the water right there. Okay, and then scrub that out. Okay. All right, I think we're just about ready.
So when you're doing that, you're
done. I'm going to go ahead and get some of this yellow here and add a little bit of it in some places right here. What?
So when you're doing that, you're holding the brush at
Almost flat.
like a more than 45-degree angle.
Right. Yeah, almost flat to the canvas. Let's add a little bit brighter yellows in there. And then you can always go back in and add some of the darker purples around. I'm just making very small changes here. This is not. I may not have to do this. I'm just trying to darken up some of these areas in here. I'm just scrubbing into those highlighted areas there to soften up that transition there.
Very nice.
Thank you.
And the painting's not too bad either. I like my original jokes.
They haven't changed in 30 years. They're awesome. They still work.
Well, it's good to know.
I want to get a little bit of this dark color, add some of that back in. This is just that kind of dark black plus some of our fog color, the dark. I'm just going to kind of transition between the fog and the fog and the dark shadows there. And again, you may not have to do this. This is just like small changes here. I am going to go ahead and do another coat of the highlight right in there. And then we'll be done. I'm taking a long time for this. It's really, I'm sorry. That marks like Oak Island. Starts in 10 minutes.
No, you got 20 minutes, so
Okay, 20
we got plenty of
minutes, all right.
time.
There you go. Just topping this time. Just to make sure I've got some lighter color here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that reflection area again. One more time. Just a little bit brighter right there. Okay. I feel like right here, I really want a little bit darker colors right down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of this purple here. Maybe a little bit more of that darker tone and try to kind of bridge this gap right here just a little bit. Just slightly. I'm going to get that pink, that's that color that's right there. Really. There we go. So it just kind of makes it look like there's something there that it's not just starting out of thin air right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and work this darker color just slightly along that water line to darken up the area just above the water line on this side. Just kind of reinforce that foggy feeling all the way down. Pink.
So the secret is don't rush.
Right.
Doesn't matter how easy it looks. It looks like a very simple, just plop in some dark colors here and some light there and it's done. And layers.
Right.
And then let your eyes do the rest.
Yep, take your time. I'm just going to go ahead and put one more layer of the brighter white right in here. A little bit of blue, a little bit of white, zinc white. Okay, there we go. And then we can do this through the trees too, if you want to. You can use the yellow from the sky, a little bit of the zinc white, and just go over this area here. Make sure your trees are dry. And just go right over the top of these trees that are in here. Just anywhere where the sky is touching the trees. And that just creates that haze on the trees. Just only in the areas, like I said, where the sky color is kind of maybe encroaching in here. It's pushing the light through the trees and causing a little bit of a soft fogginess around them, like a halo of light. pretty that is. And then you can always go back in over the top. So, once you do that, if you decide, okay, I've taken out all my dark area, I need a little bit more dark, then you can go back in and maybe get some green and black and just do just a little bit of the really dark color over everything. That's kind of, these would be your, closest foreground trees that would be more in, if we were doing a sunny day, these would be the brightest green ones. In this case, they're going to be the darkest because they're the farthest away from our light source.
We got a question real quick.
Closest to us, farthest away from the light. Yes, go ahead.
They would like to know, how do you know if you have enough glazing liquid mixed with your paint?
It's just kind of a feel. You can, if you've got so much that your paint's not covering, then you've got too much, so it kind of depends on how what you're trying to do. When you're doing a glaze of itself, you're going to use more glaze than paint. Usually it's going to be a lot more glaze than paint. When you're doing something like the fog and stuff in the trees here, where we might be using a little bit more of the paint than in other times. It depends on how much of the paint we want to come through, so I don't know if that didn't really answer your question much, but it's kind of just depends on what you're working on more than anything. So
Practice.
yeah. Yep. I'm going to get a little bit of this darker brown, blue. Bring some of that darker color down in here. Transitioning, just trying to make sure that all my transitions are really soft. That's the main thing with this painting here. Everything is very blended and soft. So I want to make sure that I've got all these really nice soft, going from the darkest black to my lightest colors, but making sure that everything is kind of soft and blendy in between. Okay, let's go ahead and stop there. I think we're close enough. I'm going to sign it and you can sign yours on the back too if it bothers you to sign your name on on the front. Some people don't like to, so totally fine to sign it on the back.
Oh, okay. Again, no rules.
Nope.
All right, we had several super chatters tonight.
Oh, wow.
The first one was from Kathleen. She had a dancing avocado.
Nice.
And so
I like
she said
avocados.
thank you. And then the next one was from Laura. She says, thank you, Angela and Mark. Angela, your talent provides stimulation, joy, and much needed reprieve from this difficult time in our lives. Art hugs and much love to you and your family. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
The next one was from Roxy. Says, I love this. I can't thank you enough for helping me become an artist. You guys are incredible.
Yay.
The next one's from Cindy. It says,
Wow.
thanks for puppy cam and money for a new plant.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm going to need it. Yeah.
And then from Andy. And Andy says, this is for Mark, even if your joke was bad.
Oh my gosh. Andy, do not encourage him.
I was, during the show, I saw that painting over there. I was like, oh, I got the perfect line for it. And then she showed it while I was away. I'm like, man, people need to hear this. It is that good.
Okay. If you say so. I noticed I brought the fog bank up a little too high there, so I just brought it back down with a little bit of the dark. And then I'm just going to fog back over just a little bit, right? A little bit lower this time. Okay. This is one that, you could just kind of get lost in all the little fun details, but I think hopefully I made it to where we broke it down and made it approachable. So hopefully you'll try it. And again, you know, it's all about just kind of making sure that you have enough of these colors. So I still have plenty of these colors. I could go back and redo the whole sky if I needed to. That's what you need to do with this one. Just make sure you've got these colors in reserve so you can go back to them, because you're going to be blending back and forth to soften up all of these colors as you go. So
yeah, like you said, as you're going in, you're adding in the darker colors. You're like, well, if it, you know, if it's not coming out right, then you might have to add a little bit more of the yellow to offset it. And so it's just, you don't know until you're mixing them together.
Right. It depends on how you mix your colors and, you know, what you need in your own individual piece. So it may be a little bit different than how I did mine, but hopefully we showed you at least kind of some good techniques to start learning to scumble and do some stippling and all that fun stuff. So yeah, and we'll be back next Tuesday. We're going to do another landscape. This time we're going to kind of combine a lot of the techniques that we've already used. So we're going to do sunset, or like it's kind of a sunrise scene. It's kind of a softer pink sky. We'll do a soft pink sky. We're going to be doing some grasses, so that'll be new. And then we're going to be doing a large, like couple of larger trees that are not pine tree shapes, but more like an oak tree shape in there. So I think there'll be a lot of good techniques in there to learn. We're going to kind of, as we go, we're building as new skills as we work. So hopefully you're learning some from this beginner series. And if you enjoyed it and want to see certain things, be sure to leave me a comment in the comment below, and I'll check it out and see what you suggest.
Like, subscribe.
Yep, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.